Hi everybody and welcome to week 4 of your container garden kit lessons. I hope that everything is growing great now and you've been able to sample some of the things. Today the star of our show is our tomato plants. So what you'll need for today's lesson is your tomato cage. You will likely need a clean scissors again, a bag to put anything in that you might harvest, and then today we're going to use your turkey manure or your sustain. We're going to give our tomato plants a little boost. So first thing we do each week is we're going to check in on our plants that are growing. So let's get some close-ups here, Sean. Sean, my cameraman, is going to help us out today. Let's come down here. Your tomato plants are probably looking really nice and big and green. If you had a big plant, it's probably a couple feet tall. If you had a smaller plant, it really shot up and it's already probably about a foot tall. Down here, we've got your cilantro. Your cilantro probably has a few true leaves already. And this, it's almost time to thin, but I think we're just going to wait until next week to thin it, and then you can actually eat the cilantro that you thin. Over here, if you have thyme, your thyme plants, hopefully they're looking okay. You can harvest these like a couple branches at a time as you need it for your meals. Interestingly, this plant I harvested last week and it's looking really great, and this plant I didn't harvest last week and it's looking a little bit sadder. So what I'm going to do with this one, I'm thinking that maybe, we talked about the more you prune your plants, sometimes the more they grow. I wonder if it just needs a good pruning and that will encourage it to grow more. Because the way plants work is if they already have leaves, they're like, why should I grow more leaves? I'm doing fine. But if you cut off their leaves, they're like, ooh, I need some more leaves. So then that will stimulate the plant to grow more leaves. So we're gonna trim off some of the stuff that's looking scraggly. We're gonna see if that encourages that plant to grow. So thyme actually does not like to be washed. So all I'm gonna do is just take it and I'm gonna put it in my bag. And I'm gonna keep it on my counter until I wanna use it. Another thing that I like to do with thyme dries really easily. So sometimes I put it in a little put a rubber band around it and hang it up somewhere in my kitchen. And when I do that, then it'll dry out and then it still has really good flavor. So that's another thing you can do. All right, then let's check in on our Thai basil. Your Thai basil probably is making a good comeback after we harvested it. Once again, I just want to show you one more time, if you are going to be wanting to harvest little bits at a time, you're going to just find the tops where the leaves are branching out. You're going to pinch it off at kind of the next armpit. So that will become a new top. So you can keep on harvesting your Thai basil in little bits as you want it. And remember, Thai basil is another one that doesn't like to be washed and it likes to be at room temperature. So you can just put that in your harvest bag. All right, then looking over at our parsley. Our parsley, hopefully yours is looking good too. It also made a big comeback from harvesting it the last time. It's big enough that you could harvest it again if you want it. And just remember that parsley does like to be washed. You want to put that in cool water and let it soak for just a little bit. Hopefully your parsley's looking good. Now, down to our radishes. Now, I don't know if you have noticed this, but my two radishes look quite a bit different from each other. This one is yellowing a little bit, whereas this one is looking pretty good. There's a couple, the main reason that plants yellow is they don't have enough nitrogen. And so we are going to try, there's one thing that you can try. And manure or compost has a ton of nitrogen in it. So you don't have a whole lot of it, but if any of your plants are looking yellow, you can sprinkle just a little bit of your turkey manure on there. And hopefully that will help it like start to do better. But don't do a lot of it because most of your tomato plant is going to want most of it. Another thing that could cause that potentially is if there's just too many plants in one spot, there's not enough nitrogen to go around. So this one I actually didn't thin until a little bit later. So maybe that's what's going on, and maybe I can thin it a little harder and maybe they'll start to look better. So maybe I'll pull out a few extra plants. And there we go. Hopefully your radishes look better than mine. Okay, now we are going to focus on the tomato plants. So I'm going to pull my tomato plant up here. Ooh. And the first thing we're going to do is we are going to sprinkle our turkey manure. Remember I told you that tomato plants are just heavy feeders. That means they need a lot of nitrogen. So we're going to sprinkle this around, and we're like giving them a treat. They're going to love this. Okay, so we just fed our tomato plant. Now we're going to put the cage around. So what we're going to do is you're going to be as gentle as you possibly can. And then these little clips, you're going to have to stretch them out to get them to fit around this big tomato cage. And you gotta, it might take a few tries, but you should be able to clip the edges of it. And then what your job's gonna be as the weeks go on is to just, as the branches are growing, put the branches, prop them up over these circles. Okay? Now you wanna spin around. I'm gonna do it on this one too. If you have a bigger plant, it might be a little bit harder. So you're just gonna have to be really gentle because you don't wanna break off any stems. The tomato plant will not like that, or you'll get fewer tomatoes probably, is what will happen. You're gonna have to jiggle around a little bit, and then hopefully you can clip it on. And then the bigger one is just gonna have more branches that whenever you can, you're gonna wanna pull those branches up so that the cage can support it, okay? Now this is gonna help as your tomato gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I do wanna say that these cages are really, really small. We ordered all this stuff online and we thought they were bigger than they were. So probably what's gonna happen is your tomato's gonna grow up over the top and really just kind of spill out over it. And we can talk about that in week 6 if it looks like that's happening a lot. But you might end up having to put a stake in there and tying the tomato if it's getting way too big for this cage to handle, if it's getting unruly. But it might work out just fine. So the next thing we're gonna look at is pruning your tomato. Now, Sean, you can get a close-up down here. Actually, this is a really good example right here. Okay, so when you're pruning your tomatoes, what pruning means is just like taking off some branches. And the reason that you want to do that is to give a little bit more air to your plant. If you have an indeterminate tomato, like I told you we've got here, all we need to do is prune off like the bottom 2 suckers. Now I'm going to show you how to figure out what a sucker is. So in each branch, what you should see is there's a branch, and then there's like an armpit. There's like a little guy coming out of that branch. The little guy coming out of that branch is called a sucker. The sucker is what's going to grow fruit. This big branch down here, that doesn't grow any fruit. It's the things that grow in the armpits that grow fruit. And we want to prune off the ones that grow fruit because that's what gets super big and unruly. So we're going to go back down to the bottom here. And on my bottom couple branches, it's actually only the sucker that's growing. So all I'm gonna do is just pinch them right off. So I'm gonna take off that bottom one, and then I'm gonna take off this sucker right here. And you know what? Because this is kind of browning already, I'm just gonna take off the whole thing. And it's ripping a little bit, which is something I don't want. Usually they come off real easily. If yours doesn't come off easily, grab your scissors and you can make a nice clean cut. All right? Yeah. So now taking off that bottom stuff is gonna give the plant, it's gonna keep the leaves off the soil, and it's going to allow more airflow to come through here, which you're gonna find out really shortly here is key for tomatoes to be able to avoid disease. All right, I'm gonna show you one more time on my other plant, just to give you one more example. Sean, you can spin around, hey. Okay, now on this one, you wanna zoom in? This one has itty bitty suckers on the bottom, and so those are gonna be easy to just pull right off. Oops. So same thing, I'm just gonna take off the bottom 3, just like the other one. And that should be good. Great. So now we have caged our tomatoes, we've pruned them, we've added our sustain or nitrogen. So now, just to teach you a little bit of fun facts about tomato plants, tomatoes are in the nightshade family, and the word for that family is Solanaceae. And other plants that are in the nightshade family are a lot of my favorites in the summertime. Eggplant is in that family, sweet peppers, hot peppers, potatoes, those are all in the nightshade family. A common thing that nightshades all have are their leaves are actually poisonous. So even though we eat the fruits of these tomatoes, you do not want to eat the leaves of these tomatoes, or any of those plants that I just mentioned. Nightshades also have flowers that look like a little star. There's 5 petals in the flowers, so they look kind of like a shooting star to me. And so we'll show you some pictures of that. Then tomatoes are a really good time to talk about disease, because tomatoes are one of the most disease-prone plants that you can get. Some of the things that tomatoes get, they get wilt. Sometimes you'll see the leaves curl a little bit. If you look closely, if your tomatoes have spots on them, a little saying that I know is, if your dots got spots, then it's fungus you got. Tomatoes are really prone to getting fungus, to blight. And so what can you do about that? Well, the biggest thing you can do to keep tomatoes free of disease is be careful about how you water. So you don't want to overwater tomatoes. And then the other thing is, most disease comes up from the soil. So you don't want to be like spraying your tomatoes down and letting dirt splash up on the tomatoes. When you water your tomatoes, you want to be really gentle and water just the base. Pruning your tomatoes will help that airflow go through and not have it be too moist. Caging them is going to help, because it's going to pull up the branches and give it more space for air to flow through. Also, just making sure they're in a spot that the sun hits them in the morning will help, because then the sun will dry off any dew that landed on them in the overnight. And so if you notice, like, keeping tomatoes dry and managing the water is the biggest way to keep tomatoes free of disease. Another thing that tomatoes are really susceptible to is pests. Lots of things love to eat tomatoes. 2 of the biggest ones are tomato hornworms and corn earworms. And we'll show you pictures of both of those things. Those are 2 just like big old nasty caterpillars that just get super fat, and they just go to town and they eat huge holes through your tomatoes, and you'll see like droppings, just poop, like all over your tomato leaves, and they don't really leave much left for you. The best way to make sure that you don't get one of those is to just be checking your tomato plants often. The best way to get rid of those is simply to pull them off. So just be like, you're a gardener. You get to really get intimate with these plants. Be checking them closely a lot and making sure there's not any little tiny caterpillars growing on them. Because if you can avoid that happening before they get big, then you'll be able to avoid them eating all your fruit. Aphids are another thing that likes tomato plants. Aphids usually don't do enough damage to kill your whole plant, but if you do have aphids and it's a problem, this would be one time that spraying your whole tomato plant with a hose might help. Just spraying them off can help. The best help is actually a different bug. Ladybugs are one of the best friends of gardeners. Ladybugs will eat the aphids right off your plants. So if you notice that you have an aphid problem, go on a search for some ladybugs and introduce those to your plants, and they might help take care of the aphid problem for you. I also want to share right now that the U of M has an amazing website called U of M Extensions that is free to all users, that has a What's Wrong with My Plant section where they you can go in there and you can you can search through like what type of plant it is and then what type of problem you're having, whether like your leaves are wilting, there's holes in your fruit, there's holes in your leaves, if you're finding an insect, if it's a small one, if it's a large one, and you can really troubleshoot most problems through this website. So we're going to post the link to that website here on the video too, and I really recommend you checking that out if just for fun. There's a lot of really good information in there. So so now let's pause for a second and we're going to go get our growing journal so that we can write down what we learned today. You can pause. All right, now if you've gotten your growing journal, let's go to the back first. The 3 parts of our day. We're gonna record stuff in the harvest tracker, do a general recording, and do our question of the day. So we're gonna record in our harvest tracker. Make a line because it's a new day. Harvest. I harvested a little bit of thyme, and this might be different for you. Like 3 sprigs. And I also harvested some Thai basil, 1 sprig, and maybe you harvested a little bit of parsley too. You record in here whatever you harvested. Then you're going to go to the front and we're going to make a new page of what we did today. And we are going to, just a couple of the things, we caged our tomatoes, and you probably will want to spend more time and write more detail. We pruned our tomatoes, and we added compost to the tomatoes. In case any of you were wondering, what they do is they take turkey manure and then they dry it up, and then they just break it up into those little pellets so that you can have super, super good for the plants turkey manure and not have a big, gross, smelly mess. And then maybe you thinned the radishes. I'm not sure. You get to write what you did. And you can add any details you see, anything you notice, anything that's grown really well. Oh, I want to note that one of my radish pots is yellow. So we added the compost and pruned a little bit more. Okay, you can do as many details as you want. You see any bugs out here? You can record the weather. Remember, this is your journal. And then the question of the day. Now, for our Urban Roots interns, this is your last official week. For the library folks, you have 2 more videos coming. But since this is Urban Roots' last official week, I thought we would do some reflection questions here. Think about our time this summer. And so I've got 2 short ones. What has been something you've learned during your garden kit session? And then also, what has been a favorite part? Those are your 2 questions of the day. Time to reflect a little bit, think about what you've done so far, and there is still lots to come. Give me a headshot here. So, thank you so much for growing vegetables with me. I hope that you're having fun. Do you want to sign out, Sean?
Yeah.
Here you go.
Hey, everybody.
Thank you, Sean, for being my amazing cameraman. All right, we'll talk to you later. See you next week.